Hey guys, I'm just me this week. Addie's working, and I've been working in the studio all week on scoring a video game. And one of the tools I've been using to figure out all of my melodies and loops and stuff is MilkyTracker. Now, this is sort of old school way of doing things, and I thought I would take a few minutes here to show you guys how approachable this thing can be if you have somebody that can tell you the very basics of how to approach it. Because if you don't, then it basically just looks like walls of hexadecimal numbers, and it's really not that complicated. So I thought I would take a few minutes here and sort of spread the information love. All right, so here on the interface, it's very retro looking stuff here. Here is the obvious, this is where we're doing our work. And this has like the columns. Each one is a channel. I have it set up for 4 channels right now because we're really not going to use any more than that. And each line or row is a beat in our musical sequence. So it's just a big grid of numbers, literally. And so this isn't very useful until you start adding instruments and samples to this, because it basically, out of the box, it doesn't know how to do anything. It doesn't have anything built into it like you'd be used to with a DAW or something like that. So the first thing I'd like to do here is add some samples. So we'll have our sample editor open, and you can get that open just by clicking the SMPED button up here and select your instrument. In this case, we're working with instrument 1 and sample 0. Now, I prepared a couple of samples to use here, so you can see that once you have your sample library put together, then it's really easy to get moving along here. So I've got an acoustic kick drum sample here, and I'll just open that, and you can see it pulls the sample right in. And I'm using MIDI to control the notes input here. So there we go. We've got our kick drum. You have the ability here to edit these samples too. So I could, for example, draw this kick drum sample by just pushing the draw button and doodling in here and making it sound however I want. But for today, we're going to move a little bit quicker than that. Okay. So I'm also going to want a snare drum, and I'm going to put that on instrument 2 sample 0 and load up the snare that I prepared. And I actually made this snare right here in MilkyTracker, so you can see it's got some noise for the attack, the hit of the stick, and then it's got a bit of a square wave to it, and then it goes back to noise, which fades out, and that sounds like that. Yeah, there. So that's really simple. And we're also going to want the hi-hat, which we can use the hi-hat for clap and for sort of stick hits. So we're just going to put that in instrument 3 sample 0, and we'll load that up. And that's the hat right there. And we can get the mid sound right there. We can get a more low sound. It automatically pitch shifts it on my keyboard, which is nice. That's usually where I'd use it, is right there. Alright, so that is all we really need to do to get our samples loaded, and now we'll work on programming the drum pattern. Alright, for sake of simplicity here, we're going to keep this really easy. We'll get the sample editor out of our way. The first thing we're going to lay are our kicks. Now, to be able to record any of this down, we need to be in record mode, which you can get into by clicking the record button or by hitting the space bar by default. Now, we're going to want a kick there, one there, one there, one there. Okay, so that's our first pattern, and to make it really quick, what I like to do is just copy it, and then we can bring it to other places and paste. The paste is a little weird here. It's Alt 5. You could also do it by right-clicking and clicking paste. So there we've got our kick pattern down. I can play just this pattern by clicking the pattern button. So that's really simple kick pattern. And to liven it up a bit, we're going to want to add our snares in. Now, the reason why we only need 4 tracks here is because we can use track 1 to play more than one type of sample. We can just interleave it, right? So what I'm going to do here is switch the instrument over to 2 up here, and then I'll drop in the snares here. Okay, so we're going to try to find a good spot for our snare drums to work here, and we'll put them on the off beats. Check that pattern. All right, and then we can add the hat here, and that's the middle frequency version of it. It looks like we've got an opening here as well, and that would be a snare hit, so we'll go back to 2. We'll check that. Okay, so there's our basic pattern there, and then to give it a little bit more life, what we want to do is a higher version of the snare up here, right? And we'll leave one open there. Alright, so let's copy that pattern down to the rest of it. So use the same technique we did before, just overwriting what we did before. Now to me the higher frequency snare is a bit loud compared to the other instruments, so what I'd like to do is adjust the sample here. We'll do a range all, and we can right click the sample and do some automated stuff to it. And I'm going to do a volume fade down to 0 at the end, and we actually want to drop the volume in the beginning as well. So we'll drop it down to 50%. You can see how the amplitude dropped an awful lot right there. Okay, and that's getting a little bit better. I think I'm going to drop it some more. It's a little bit more what I was looking for. Now let's test if I reverse it. Play the sample backwards, in other words. A little something there. Now if we do a volume fade on the tail end of that, that's getting nice and subtle, and we'll just reverse that back and okay, now I want to adjust the snare a little bit, so we're going to do a similar thing here. We're just going to adjust the volume, and I find that fading it works really well. Okay, and there's a nice starting point for our drum pattern. We have our drums there, but they're very mechanical right now, and well, that's not really what we're going for. So one thing I'm going to try here is to remove out some of these snares, and we put snare on 2. So I'm gonna, you can see the other column over here. That's which instrument it's using. And yeah, I can just hit the delete key here to remove a couple drum hits throughout the pattern, and we can test that. Okay, that's got a little bit more open space in it, which we're going to need. Yeah, I think we can work with that. So when you're doing a drum pattern, you need to make sure you leave enough room in the sonic space for the bass to come in and out. So we want to leave those holes in there, and then we'll come back in with the bass stuff. Now, one easy trick for making the bass sound pretty cool in this is to use multiple sine waves, and people do this all the time in music. You use multiple waves and you detune them slightly from one another, and we can do that fairly easily in this software. We're going to create a new instrument here, instrument 4, and this time we're not going to load a sample. We're actually going to create our sample from scratch. So I'm going to make the sample size on this 64. You always want to use powers of 2 here. So we've got 64, and then I want to generate a sine wave in here. Okay, 100% amplitude and 1 sine period, and that gives us, you know, the classic sine wave here. Now, to detune this, we need to go into the instrument editor. So instrument editor up here by this button will give us access to some stuff over here, and our fine tuning, we can detune it by 3 cents. And also, we're going to get really tricky here. We're going to hard pan it all the way to the left. Now, let's keep in mind that's just one of our 2 sine waves. So we're going to do on instrument 5 in our sample editor the same thing. New 64 sample size, and we're going to generate a sine wave of 1 period. Okay, and then in our instrument editor, we're going to tune this one up 3 cents instead of down, and we're going to pan it hard right instead of hard left. Now, one thing to note, when you want to make a sustained tone, you want this sample to loop. So what we're going to use on these 2 is loop forward, and you can find that down here. So that one's been turned on to loop forward. This one hasn't. I'm going to turn off record mode, and I'll push a C. Not really getting anything there. But when I turn forward on, you'll hear that hard panned sine wave. And if we switch to this instrument, it's hard pan the other direction. And these are slightly out of tune, but they're both out of tune the same amount in opposite directions. So when we play them together, we're going to get a nice effect. Let's go back into record mode here, and we're going to put some sine waves in here. Okay, so nice low frequency material. So this one is on instrument 5, but we want this one to be on instrument 4, because that's where we put our other sine wave. And these are set to full sustain right now, so we'll try listening to it that way. Now while that's playing, we can adjust which octave we want that note to be based in here in the instrument editor. So I can put instrument 5 up an octave, instrument 4 up an octave. Now, you should be able to hear that there's like phase relation crosstalk happening between the 2 channels when your brain sums them together. If you're listening in headphones, this can be very obvious. If you're listening to it on speakers, they mix together in the room and you get a very cool effect. So yeah, try both and you'll see exactly what I mean. The volume of it goes up and down because when you add things that are out of phase together, and they become out of phase because they're out of tune, in parts of the mix, it changes the volume up and down, the perceived volume. So that's pretty cool, but we don't want just a drone note going on in the background. So the next thing we're going to do is do some filtering to bring those notes up and down and maybe add in some dropouts. Alright, one easy way to do this is going to be to just use the green row of dots here, and we'll just do, remember these are hexadecimal values, so whatever that's worth to you. We'll do a little pattern like this, and this will make it really easy for us to just copy and paste this all the way down. Again, the paste on this is on Alt F5, which is a little uncomfortable. You probably can remap these things. So now bringing this filter up and down, we can get that sine wave pairs to change in perceived amplitude over time. So I'm going to copy this whole thing and we'll paste it onto our channel 3 like so, and let's see what we've got with this. Feel it going up and down? Yeah. Now we've got a more driving feeling going on it, which is exactly what we want. Now, to create a rhythmic aspect of the bass that goes with the drum pattern, the easiest way to do it is just to create dropouts. So that's what we're going to do next. So to do this, what we're going to do is we're going to use one of the control commands. There's a whole bunch of them, and we're going to cover a couple of them here. But for this one, we're just going to use the channel volume controller, which is a C followed by a number, right? Now, 40 is full volume. That's 40 in hex, 40. And 00 is absolutely down in volume. So if we want to create some drops in here, we'll pick a spot and we'll see how the drop sounds. And if we like it, we'll leave it. If not, we'll move it. We're going to mute channel 3 so we can hear us a little bit better. So that dropped, but it dropped in a place that didn't really go with the groove that we have right now. So I'm going to move it a little bit, and we'll see what it sounds like here. It's a little bit better. And I think we can do 2 drops per loop. And that'll bring it back up to 40 when we paste. So let's try that pattern. Okay, that's fun. Okay, we're going to copy this and propagate it out down the channel here using our paste. One nice thing about working in column of hexadecimal numbers is that it's fairly simple to apply changes on a time pattern, really. There's probably more efficient ways to use this functionality with just the keyboard. You could probably copy from right here, but just by pressing keys, but I don't use the software enough to know all the keyboard shortcuts. Alright, the channel is now unmuted and I've put the drops on both sides, so we'll play the pattern. So that's pretty cool when it drops out. It makes it even more driving than it was. And we still need a little bit more variation on the parts where it's going full volume. So we'll do that next. To do this, we're going to use another other control commands, and that's going to be the A command. And that basically lets us drop the volume, but not instantly. It slides down the volume knob and then slides it back up. Now if you're on this side over here, it's going to slide it down. If you're on this byte here, it's going to slide it up. So what we want to do is slide it down by a hexadecimal. That's a 10 for those of you who are not familiar. So we're going to have it slide down the volume level right there, and then we're going to have it slide up the volume level here, and we'll see what that dip sounds like. I'm going to apply this over here right away so I can hear it in both channels at once. Okay, we're going to try the pattern. Yeah, that's that's a good positioning. So I'm going to copy these and propagate them down, which is really easy. Just use our pasting. So we're using one space there, 2 spaces there, and we'll see how that sounds. And then 1 space there. By varying up where they are, you break up the monotony of the rhythm pattern, so it gets a little bit of an extra groove. You're basically syncopating it a little bit. We're going to copy the whole command chain there, and we'll paste it over here. Alright, let's see if that that slight movement change helps us or hurts us. Adds just enough little variety in there. Alright, so we've got our rhythm together, and it's got some bass now too. It's always good to use the bass line to add groove and add rhythm to any music that you're working on. But what we need to do now is add some tonal musicality to it, because right now we're just playing a C, and we can go a little bit further than that. This is just going to be a simple example, so we're not going to do any melody work, but we can definitely put down some simple progression work. And the first thing we need to do that is to create ourselves a new instrument to go on for. Channel 4, instrument 5. We're going to go into our sample editor, instrument 6 rather. We already have something on 5. So in 6 we need to create a new sample, 64 again, because this one is going to loop forward. And this time we're going to generate ourselves a square wave, because they have lots of harmonic content. Now I'm going to select the whole thing with the RNG all button, and then I'm going to do an advanced volume fade, and we're going to leave the front at 100 and the back at 0. So that gives me a nice lightning bolt shape, and then I'm going to reverse this. And then I'm going to do the exact same thing. I'm going to do a volume fade. Now I've got a symmetric lightning bolt, and I'll turn off record and let you guys hear what that sounds like. We're not feeding forward yet, so we obviously couldn't hear it. Remember, when you're going to loop a sample, it has to have a loop method there. So there's a couple of the frequency ranges that you can do. It's got a very a neat little sound. It's a waveform that I use quite often. This whole thing is a little bit chip-tuney, if you will. So that's going to be our instrument 6. I'm going to go back into record mode here, and I'm going to put a C there, and I'm going to put a G there. And we can just sort of play that through once, and you can hear how it adds the music quality to it. right, so that's that, and we're of course not going to leave it like that, but it's a start, right? So I just increased it by an octave, and we'll check how that sounds. Okay, that's a little bit more usable range for us compared to the bass. You always need to make sure that you give each instrument its own frequency range, right? You want to keep things separate unless there's some intentional interaction that you want to happen. In this case, we don't want that to happen. So there are just a C and a G. It's the most simple progression ever, and for making a simple example loop like this, that'll be just fine. But we've got another trick up our sleeves, and we can take just those two notes and we can do an awful lot with them. So on tracker channels like this, one of the limitations is that you can only play at one frequency at a time, one note at a time. And this goes all the way back to the 8-bit computer era. And the way that musicians got around this is taking advantage of an old classical music trick called an arpeggio, where you play notes from a chord in sequence. So let me turn off record here. So there's a triad, right? And if you were to play them, you can hear the whole chord even though the three notes aren't being played together. So that's the root note, the 3, and the 7 in the scale. And trackers have this really cool ability to be able to automate that for you. So what we're going to do here is go back into record mode, and we can put a 3 here, which automatically adds a 0 to our control command line, and 3 for the third note in the scale, 7 for the 7 note in the scale. So I'm just going to put 3s all the way down rather than turtles, and 7s all the way down. Alright, so now basically what it's going to do is it's going to play that C as the root note, and then it's going to play the 3, which off of C major, that would be an E, and then it's going to play the 7, which in C major is our G, and it's just going to keep doing that all the way down here. So let's give a listen and see how that sounds. You hear how it changed when it gets to G? That's because it's playing relative notes off of the G instead of off of the C. So you very quickly can get the idea that with this little 0 command, we can create a lot more body and a lot more musicality to it. Very, very, very cool trick. But this is not dynamic enough yet, so we're going to use some other stuff too. And this is where we start getting fancy. The first thing that I'm going to want to do here is change it so that this is actually a volume to full. And another thing that I'm going to want to do is add a dropout here. So we're going to drop out to 0. And we obviously won't need these, and we'll be pasting in at that point. And so we don't want to arpeggio or arp the entire time. We want to make sure we leave ourselves a little bit of breathing room in there. So we can find the spots in our pattern of rhythm where we have changes happening, and we can tie into them with our arp as well, so that they move together. Did you hear that? So the more of these we take out, the more you lose the warbly stuff, and you get a pure note come through. So now that's a little bit longer, and if I make that one match, So now our ARP is following our rhythm, and that's a really handy thing to be able to do. Now another trick that we can apply here is that we can also use the filter line to do all sorts of fun things. So last time we went up, let's go down, but make our pattern longer. See where that brings us. All right, right before our loop point. So now let's check this out. Did you guys pick that up? That's, you know, by bringing that up and down, we can make it fade in and out. Now, if we take this pattern and copy it down, we don't want to copy it down all the way. We want to stick with our split between the C and the G. So I'm going to put it there, not there. Control Alt Z is the undo instead of Control Z. This is where we actually wanted it. Okay, but this time I want to change up the pattern a little bit. Alright, so now we've got a more dynamic pattern going on there. And we still have some room that we could tuck some other commands in here. But the next trick I wanted to show you guys actually is a little more advanced and kind of cool. And to do this, we're actually going to need to add another instrument. So I'm going to go into my sample editor here and pop into instrument 7, which we haven't used yet. Create a new sample at 64 slices, and then generate a triangle wave. And I know I'm going to want this one a little bit quieter because I'm going to bring down the volume on that lightning bolt wave we made already. So we're just going to do it like this from the get-go. And so the basic idea here is that we don't have to stick to a single instrument on channel 4. Just like we were able to change between different samples on our drum channel, we can change to different instruments on the fly on our arpeggio channel here. Now, the trick here is to find the right spot. And one thing that I find works pretty well is to change it just right before it switches. And sometimes it's better to change it to the note that it's going to switch to. Sometimes it's better to change just the instrument and not what note it's playing. For this time, we're going to try to do it to the note that it's going to be. So it's going to switch over to a G before the G is technically starting, right? And we need to feed that forward. Let's check it. So it's looking like we're going to want down in the octave 3. So that'll change, and 3 up from the bottom, we're going to want a C as well, because that'll feed into the C here. Alright, let's listen to the first bit of that. Did you hear that triangle wave come in there right at the end? Now, one easy way that we can adjust this is to again use our instrument editor and have instrument 7 selected and just use our octave up button. Alright, so that allows us to change from a C to a G and change our waveform type from a lightning to a triangle wave. So it adds just that little element of change right there at the shift point between the C and the G. And it's always good to add things like that that give it more of a lift and drop, more groove. All right, so we have to copy all of the work that we've done over on this side of things down to our G section. So I'm going to copy that there, make sure we're in the right spot, and paste it here. And let's give that a listen all the way through. Alright, and then I've got one other little trick to show you guys before we finish up here. So Addie couldn't be here today for recording, but we do have the technology to bring her here anyway. So what I'm going to do here is go to our instrument 8 and our sample editor and load up this sample of Addie. We just need to left. But we'll mix it together. So here's a sample of Addie. We'll do the range, get the volume up higher. Yeah, boosting to 100% doesn't do anything. Whisker. That up. All right, and I'm also going to want to do a little bit of equalization on it. We don't need the low end here. All right, and we'll turn off record and see what it sounds like.
Hey, 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 hey.
So there we've got a bit of Addie, and we can make it play the sample at any point.
Hey.
All right, so in our track rhythmically, I think about here would be a nice spot to add a hey, and it would replace one of the kick drums. So we'll go back into record mode and we'll just replace that kick drum, and we'll see how that works.
Hey.
Now you notice that it stops playing the sample when the next drum hits, because in these channels you can only ever be playing one sample at a time. Let's listen to that again.
Hey.
Pretty good to know. And to have enough room to let her say it, we would need to find some space in here. So we'll set that one back to a kick. And then we'll make some room in the middle of our mix here. So I'm going to remove these guys. Go back to, I think she was on 8.
Hey.
Put it there and see what it's happening.
Hey.
Feels like it's a little bit late to me, so what I'm going to do is remove it and pump it up to here.
Hey.
And we'll see what that sounds like.
Hey.
Bit better.
Hey. 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 Hey.
So I hope you guys enjoyed that. I thought I'd share a little bit of the knowledge I've picked up using this program. It's really easy. It's totally free. It's open source. You can go find it. I'll put a link in the description, and it doesn't cost you anything to make music with this thing, and it's very programmer friendly. It's all hexadecimal and waveforms and such. So, all you guys out there, go ahead, download it, play with it, and maybe upload some videos and show me what you guys have done with it. I'd really like to see that. So anyway, that's it for me for this week. We'll be back next Wednesday with another Toymaker Television. Until then, check out the other 5 shows a week that we do. You can find links to all of them down in the description. See you guys later.
We post videos all the time, so don't forget to subscribe. And follow us on Twitter at TYMKRS.